Hello everyone and welcome to Vrl Season 5, Round 13 here in Brazil for the Brazilian Grand Prix. The cars are out on track for qualifying. 19 cars racing today. Last race winner Gil in P18 at the moment, yet set a lap, currently on their out lap. Not many cars, or no cars have set lap times yet. Lots on our out laps, only one still in the pits, that is Matthias Gamer. So yeah, today Gil could seal the championship. Let's see whether they're able to do so. It's going to be fairly close, so it'll be interesting to see whether they'll seal it up. Gil's very much in command of this championship. However, if we have a repeat of last race, but instead of Domi retiring, it is Gil, then perhaps the championship could swing open again, although that did seem like a one-off rare occasion. A few drivers out now on the medium tyres. Tati Kimi is out on the medium tyres in his car. Still flagging the middle sector there for Mercedes. I believe they're just letting people through. Other cars that are starting this session on the mediums. Monster has decided to go with the mediums for their first run. I imagine that most cars will switch over to the softs by the end of the session. Because strategy, it's not a huge advantage to go with the medium tyres, if any. Other drivers on the medium include iQuicks and Memes Virus. And as you can see at the moment, the soft tyre runs are definitely ahead on lap time at this stage of the session. Hello, Alex.
Yeah, good morning, good day to evening to all. Well, hi Jackson, thanks thanks for having me. I've seemed to finally be able to join the lobby. I've had my game freeze on me when joining the lobby 3 times so far today, as well as trying to set up tasks twice. So it's been a bit of a nightmare start, but we're here eventually. Jackson, first of all, thank you for covering the start of the stream. Is there anything of note I've missed? I can see Max on pole ahead of Domi and Gil currently.
Yeah, not much happening at the moment, other than, as you said then, it's sort of just people setting sort of their first laps at the moment. A few drivers have got started on the medium tyres, although I imagine most drivers will switch over to the softs at the end of the session. We'll have to wait and see. There is very much a big delta between the softs and the medium runners.
On top of that as well, it's usually an easy one-stop here at Brazil.
With good tyre, I reckon you could probably do a soft medium. So I think most of these guys will probably aim for that. But you know, if we have an early safety car, that could definitely mix things up and go on to the hards. And of course, there is a possibility of rain. I'm not sure if there will be or not, but I mean, we had rain last race in Mexico. Brazil known for its changeable weather conditions. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
Of course, it looks as if it's going to stay pretty dry, at least for now, here at Interlagos. But yeah, just commenting on the strategy you mentioned before, Jackson. Presuming it's a 100% clean race, green running from start to finish, it will be a relatively easy one-stop from soft to mediums. It's the quickest strategy. Sometimes the drivers might run into a few issues with tyre wear in the first stint on the soft, but other than that, there's really no issues. And yeah, the dividend is paid when you go on the mediums at the end rather than the hards, which we might see a few drivers stopping early and doing so, but you really lose out so much because, as you mentioned, the delta between the tyres is quite big. So expect drivers to mainly opt for the soft to medium. I'm not really entirely sure to why. We've got quite a few drivers on the medium because, for qualifying anyway on the medium, because the soft tyre is just so beneficial at the start of the race, but maybe they have something up their sleeve that we're not sure about.
Yeah, who knows? Perhaps there is rain coming in the race, and perhaps that is their plan to do what Mill did last race and try and extend their first into the rain. Although, it seems like a lot of drivers are switching back over onto the softs now. Perhaps it was just a banker lap just to get a safe lap in on the mediums.
A little installation run.
Yes. Currently, posted from the last race, down in 19th, yet to set a lap time on an out lap at the moment. Got a Renault up ahead, so I imagine they'll back up. Yep, they're going to back away from that car, get a bit of clear air.
Well, I can remember from last race, Dylan, I believe didn't set a lap until right at the end, of which he went on to pole because he invalidated, I believe, 2 of his 3 runs, and his 3rd run was the one that got him onto pole, so quite literally 3rd time lucky. Yeah. It's a little bit easier, or I should say a little bit harder, to invalidate a lap here at Brazil than it would have been last time at Mexico. Track limits are quite prominent at turn 1, 2 and 3 through the centre S, but other than that, other than I'd probably say turn 6 and 7 up the hill, the drivers won't run into any track limits issues today, and wouldn't expect to see too many penalties, especially if we go off what we saw yesterday in the F2 race.
Well, yeah, there's not many places here, as you said, where you can exceed track limits, and with drivers at this level, you'd expect not to see many incidents off the road. They're always going to be trying a very short lap here, so you can get maybe an extra lap in more if you really squeeze your laps in together. Have quite quick in and out laps. But of course, oh, is that spin there for Warren there?
Dylan.
Yeah,
just lit up the tyres on exit. Quite easy to do. It's quite a rear tyre stress track with the the nature of the middle sector being quite low speed corners. A lot of stress on the rear tyres to get that traction down, and Dylan just pushing it a little bit too far, and that's a mistake. But I'm sure he'll iron that out come the end of the session. But I've just noticed back to the front, obviously we've got Max on pole ahead of Domi, just 5 thousandths separate the two of them, so really tight margins. Obviously, as you mentioned, with it being a short lap, the field is naturally a lot more compressed, but that's uber compressed at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. We saw Monster struggle on rear tyres earlier in the session. They were, of course, medium tyres though, so you imagine a bit less control in those tyres, because you want to get on top of that for the actual race. As Domi has just begun a lap time here, trying to, well, Domi at this rate just needs to destroy Gil, as Gil now goes to the top of the timing. That is exactly what Domi does not want. Domi needs Gil to have some sort of problem at this stage, because of course Gil can win the championship today with one race remaining in the season.
Of course, I will find the permutations.
I will try and find them. I feel like it's going to be very crucial. But yeah, I feel, as I said earlier in the session, earlier in the start, it's that Domi needs sort of a repeat of what happened to him last race to happen here in Brazil. But in this case, it would be Gil that goes out instead of Domi, sort of reopen the championship fight. Although if that was to happen, maybe another collision between the two of them, perhaps some leftover feelings from the previous one would lead them to be a bit more aggressive with each other. I already said last race that aggression could be there for obviously being championship rivals, but now that they've had that sort of previous, they're going to be less forgiving to each other, sort of less polite on the racetrack, which could definitely lead to more contact.
Of course,
3
just hearing him
milliseconds off. Wow.
Wow, that's a championship battle and a half.
Yep.
But one thing to note, Domi is on 1 lap older tyres because he invalidated his first lap. I was just going to bring that point up before we went on a small tangent. But yeah, Domi on slightly more worn tyres, so there's certainly 3 thousandths in that lap. Max as well on a lap time, he's well off on his lap, 15 seconds down, so I presume he's backed off or he's going to the pits. But I've heard from Felix that it is going to be a dry race all the way through, so no weather stipulations like last time out. Doesn't mean it's not going to be an interesting race. We've got 19 drivers. It's all so tight right now. The top, well, 4 drivers separated by just over 1/10 of a second. That gap is going to get ever so smaller. VRT Benjamin again, strong qualifying so far, up in 4th position. Yeah,
just trying to get within those championship rivals, which of course is something that Domi will need. More drivers up there in the fight with them, but of course going against them.
Of course, and we've just had the championship permutations through from Heartland Mode. Thank you very much to him. But obviously we'll update you on these as the race goes on. But if Gil wins today, that's the championship for him done and sealed. If he wins today, it will also be a 6th consecutive win for the French driver, which will be something. But we'll have to see how this race evolves. There's 36 grueling laps of the Autodromo Carlos Pache of the drivers to navigate, so a lot can happen. A lot can be won and lost today, and it's not over until it's over. Think back to last season, the top 5 in this race were separated by just 2.2 seconds at the finish line, and without penalties, 3.2 seconds covered the top 7 drivers. I remember it was crazy. Not sure if you've seen the race, Jackson, but it was nose to tail all the way through between the top 7, and one mistake and you could really drop from first all the way back. As there goes Warren for the 2nd week in a row, nabbing it on provisional pole, a 6.2. I have to say that's a really strong lap time, and both Ferraris again looking strong.
It'd be very interesting to have a very similar grid to last time. Much shorter run to turn 1 here though, so you're going to need a much better start if you want to go for a move. However, if ends up going all the way through the CNRS, that could definitely lead whoever's in third place to get a great run down towards turn 4. So that could get very interesting into that corner if we do have some battling through the CNRS.
Of course, we've gone to the two extremities of runs to turn number 1. Last time at Mexico, the longest run to turn 1, 1.1 kilometers, whereas this time, I believe it's probably the second shortest, just behind Monaco. 14 meters covers the first grid slot down to the apex of turn number 1. So, really, you put yourself in a good position if you can get a good launch and a good run through the CNRS. But as you said, the threat of an overtake is always there into turn number 4 down the Reta Aposta.
So I've got a retirement there from iQuicks in the middle sector. I mean, it's a strange place to go off. The car's now gone, but I don't really know what could have happened there in that collision. Just looks like they're braking or something.
No further to add. We saw Lewis Hamilton go off at turn 6 and 7, just where Max is right now, back in 2017. Yeah, the cars have evolved since then, but
back on those cars, the rear end was much looser, less rear downforce compared to just look at the size of the rear wings these days now. That was of course 2017, but you still look at the comparison with the new 2019 regulations on that rear wing.
2020 to update you.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Max is well, you're right with the 2019 rear wing. I take that one back, but Max on a strong lap. He's purple to the middle sector. He's going to take the short run to the line. Always looks like they're going to come into the pits. He does continue on. Is it enough for pole? It's not enough for pole. He marginally improves on his lap time by just under 300th of a second, but it's not quite enough. Does elevate him a lot closer to Domi though. Just about half a tenth separate them two. That looks like Domi's going for another lap.
One less snap of oversteer for Max, and that could be up into the battle for pole position. So who knows? Perhaps Max is in the fight. But it is looking like we're going to see a repeat of last race in terms of who we see up at the front. It's going to be interesting to see if we do see any surprises though. So as that is, wow, Domi going to the top of the timing there.
Yeah, I followed him on the final part of the lap. Looked clean, tidy. Didn't look necessarily fast, with all due respect to the McLaren driver, but just looked, composed. I did notice he didn't open his DRS until very late, so unless he's trying to leave about half a tenth on the table for the final run, or just made a mistake there.
Perhaps they weren't. Maybe they're trying to hide their pace. But clearly, if that was what they were trying to do, it has not worked.
It hasn't worked very well because he's 100th clear, nearly a. Looks like turn 4 he's gone off, between turn 4 and turn 5.
Yeah, it's a weird place to crash there for Felix, that is.
I don't think he crashed because the car was still moving, but his teammate's gone off the track down at Young Cow.
Felix, of course, has 2 points on the table now, as bought him a bit all over the place there, maybe a bit of lag involved, I just saw when I looked over. Was that a spinning wall? That was good, it could have been close then. Was that Benjamin there? Who was
Benjamin? I thought it was one of the racing points, but
it was
no, you're right.
Across the track,
yeah, you're right.
And proceeded to the pit. Not really surprised there. Maybe they just spun the rears up. I like we've seen so many drivers do. Big surprise so far for me is one of the 3 championship contenders, Pollution Bowl, 15th at the moment.
Yeah, I was just about to pick up on that. Again, a poor qualifying. Remember last week he was, well, for the most of qualifying, down in. He was 8th or 9th if I remember correctly. But he improved, but it just looks off the pace. He just doesn't. I haven't seen him much this session, but 15th, only ahead of the 2 Renaults and TRT Kimi. Yeah, he's got a big final lap to find around a track this short. It's much harder to find 4 or 5 tenths than it would be around a longer lap. But you hope for his sake, for his championship challenge, that he'll be able to thrust himself back up the order, but yeah, we'll have to see.
It's going to be interesting to see how he does, because of course, obviously they're 3rd in the championship, they need to have, well, they really need Gil and Domi both to have a terrible race here. Domi is very much in reach of Pollution Bowl, but Gil is definitely out of reach at the moment. They need something to go against them, and Pollution Bowl did have quite a strong outing last time out. So perhaps it's just not a strong track for them. We'll have to wait and see what they do on their final run. Not hugely off,
Talking
only
about
7
final
tenths off,
runs.
but who knows?
Talking about final runs, Warren up by 100 through the middle sector. He's 13,000th down, so just over 100. Can he find them crucial 3,000s in the final sector as he crosses the line? No, he can't.
Wow, that's a terrible
Well,
final sector. What's happened there?
Slow lap from Dylan.
That's
He's obviously
surely
made a
that's out of pole.
mistake.
So that is Warren not getting pole now. That is
Presuming we don't have a timing glitch, which
Yes.
happens sometimes with the clock coming down quicker than it is for the drivers, he won't have time for another lap. But I will keep my eye on that because Dommy's still on his lap, starting his lap now though. So I think our timing screens might be accurate as we've got Gil coming through the first sector now. Seemed like a relatively clean run, and this will be a very important pole for Gil. But remember, he is in prime position here. Yeah, he has the championship in his hands. He can sit around as Memes Virus goes up to 5th. Yesterday's Vrl F2 race winner, standing in for McLaren. He's done a solid job so far in F2 and in F1, I have to say. He's been all over the shop. Started the season in F3, stepped up to F2, has been so quick, been a reserve. And joined F1 as a reserve, standing in for a couple of races, up in 5th so far. Strong lap from him, the experience from yesterday counting out. Nick Mania, meanwhile, goes 4th in another strong qualifying for him and the Haas team. Gil is up by 10th and purple to the final sector, and here's his teammate.
I had a feeling
Here's his
this is
teammate.
coming. Let's see.
Max and Bruce.
It's beautiful. Oh, that, you couldn't ask for a better slipstream than that, could you? But it's P1. Yeah, wow.
Just.
By
Only
6
just.
thousandths. By 6 thousandths. But Dommy is still coming. And Dommy is up by enough currently to get in the fight. Not quite enough to get pole though. Let's see what they can do as they head
How's his
towards the
final
line.
sector?
What can they go? And it is only P3. Oh, look how close that fight is. Oh my. That is 3 cars within 7 hundredths. And 4
Wow, yeah,
cars within
Dylan.
7 hundredths, sorry.
To 4th at the end there. I don't think Dommy improved on his final lap actually.
I do think they did slightly. Because
Did
they were a bit further off, I believe. Because they were, I think, 4 hundredths up in the after the middle sector. I remember thinking that wouldn't be enough.
In that case, the gap between Gil and Dommy was the same after the first. It's the timing screen's updated for me. Wow, yeah, that is extremely close. The top 3 drivers separated by 1.5 hundredths.
Well, listen,
Really tight margins.
well, the gap that we had last was it last season? We had that very close finish.
Season 4.
So yeah, I mean, looking at it as at the moment, it looks like we could very much have a repeat of that. Drivers that close, I'm sure going to be an exciting one because it's another track where you can very much pass at, and similar
Of
to a lot of
course.
other tracks, it's a track where you can pass and then repass because of course you have the run between turn 3 and turn 4.
DRS as well is so powerful, especially along the start-finish straight. So expect drivers. One thing that we do sometimes see drivers run into is a DRS train, which can sometimes make the races a little bit boring, but then strategy comes into it, and you see drivers moving up and down the undercut. Can be quite powerful here, as can the overcut. If you keep the tyres alive, you get the slipstream, you set good laps. So there's a lot of manoeuvring room. There's a lot of wiggle room, I should say, for strategy. But I've summarised the championship a little bit better than we were able to do in qualifying. But BDG Gil can become champion today if he outscores Dommy by 2 points and doesn't lose more than 6 points to Pollution Ball. So that updates you a little bit. Pollution Ball, I didn't actually see. Do you know if he improved on his final run?
I did
So he was
not
all the
see
way down in
either.
15th.
It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, if Gil wins this race, they've got the championship in the bag. So starting up at the front, it's going to be interesting to see. Dommy here could perhaps get a bit desperate, but that, of course, is how we end up with collisions like last race. And Pollution Bolt did improve, but only up to 12, which is... Well, it's not championship contender position, is it?
Very much so, not championship contender position. If we're looking on the bright side, if we're picking positives, then he does get a fresh set of free choice of tyres and a fresh set. Medium tyres he's opted for. I mean, if you're Pollution Bolt, last ditch scenario, on pure pace, on the regular strategy, he probably won't get anywhere near the championship fight, so may as well try and mix up. We got Nick Pancras joining about 60 seconds too late for him to get a seat, so shame for him. One thing I did pick up at the end of qualifying is that Memes Virus, qualifying 6th, did pick up a a 5-place grid penalty, so I'm not sure who he's made contact with.
That is strange. We'll have to look into that after the race. Yeah, that's hurt them a bit, but perhaps we could see maybe a charge through the field there from Memes Virus. Plusible here could be in a good position though here on the medium tyres. If we do have a DRS train, if by some miracle the DRS train goes all the way down to 12th place, these medium runners would definitely be pulled into it. Because all they have to do is keep up with the top group, and then when the tyres switch, like we saw in Italy, it sort of flips back towards the drivers that started on the harder compounded tyres. Although around
I think we
here,
can all expect them to struggle in the first 10-12 laps, but as you said, that switch could come in and we could see a changeover. But
the one thing I noticed around here is the soft tyres are very durable.
They are durable, but you know, when they hit the cliff, as on any track, when they hit the cliff, and you can lose a lot of pace, and you might see the drivers start to manage a little bit, especially if they want to make that medium tyre strategy work I was talking about in qualifying. But just to remind you, Gil can clinch the championship today. He needs to outscore Domi by 2 points and not lose more than 6 points to Plusible. So if they finish as they start right now, it will be Gil's championship to lose, or it will be his championship in his grasp, as we've got all 19 drivers on the grid. As we wait for the 5 red lights ahead of the drivers. So we still wait. Here we go then. For the penultimate time in VRL Season 5, Ferrari on pole, Racing Point second, IGK Domi third, it's lights out, and away we go. It looks like Gil got the better of the starts between the front row. Mac covers off IGK Domi as we go down into the centre S. It looks like Dylan has got past his teammate. There's contact between Domi does hold it just about in a straight line, but he's dropped back behind his teammate now as we go down the Red to Riposta. Gil leads ahead of Max, ahead of Warren, who's had a good start after a little bit of contact with his teammates. Championship rival Domi, who's dropping back through the field now. Does he have damage on that front wing? I don't think he does. A little bit of contact there with Plusible, who's made up places on their medium tyres. Memes Virus as well, up from 11th into 7th. Tim Wentic keeping out of trouble, up in 8th position there as he gains some position. Both Hasses also with a really good start, 5th and 6th. Benjamin up to 4th, but most importantly, championship-wise, Gil in the lead and pulling a gap.
Yeah, that's not the start Domi needed. That is the exact opposite start Domi needed. Of all the contenders that needed a perfect start, it was Domi and Plusible. And Gil did exactly what they needed to do and just maintain the lead. And now they just have to sort of, I think it's fair to say they're just going to try and just not necessarily pull a gap, but just sort of maintain pace, just make sure not to make any mistakes. We see Domi already trying to make their way up the order here by swooping past Tim, and has already got past
Tim's going to fight it.
Or Tim gets that back. Great move there from Tim to fight that one off as Felix is into the pit lane. That's not what they would have wanted. Oh, that was a bit of lag there from Tim, I think. Will Domi go for the move here?
Seems all good.
Yes,
he will.
Oh, bit of contact. That was very close to being a spinner there.
Domi seems quite desperate today. Yeah, same.
The difference is that if it was 2012, it would have been Gil that had gone spinning around down the order, and not Domi. Yeah, it is very interesting here. See what Domi can do to get back up into the fight. I think Domi's hopes now rest in Gil making a mistake. It was already looking likely that way.
Let's not predict anything too early. We've still got a long way to go, but yeah, it does look advantage Gil at the time being. But Domi just look. I've seen him lunge for moves like that this season.
Head just struggling now because not only have they've got Gil up in first place, Pollution Ball right behind them. If Gil does win the title today, those two are going to be battling out for. If that does become their new target, they're going to want to beat each other in that.
Of course.
These two do not want to have the other one in front.
DRS enabled this lap.
And Domi is very much settling into the DRS train as predicted. The first gap that we could see form here is the first for Hasses behind Benjamin is near. Oh, I know they've just closed in a bit through here, but
it was
still
teetering.
Not enough.
Yeah, it's certainly teetering on the edge, but Jackson, as you mentioned, if you drop out of DRS range, you're going to be a real cork in the bottle. And what that will do, interestingly, and this happened last season here at Brazil, is if one driver drops out of of that DRS range and that gap starts to open, the leaders can then start to look into that gap, presuming they can extend the gap and try and pit into that gap, because obviously they have the gaps on their MFD and they're told where they'll come out and pit, and maybe even teammates they can communicate with. Meanwhile, Gil does set the fast lap. But yeah, watch for gaps opening up, because we might see the likes of Gil, Max, Warren, Benjamin as well, who does seem to be opening that gap to Haas. Try and sort out a gap, because pitting out into traffic, especially into a DRS train of traffic, can be very costly for your race.
Yeah, it looks like they're just hanging in at the moment with a monster further down the order. On those medium tyres behind the soft tyre runner of Luke and Nick. That is starting to drop out of it, and unless they're battling up ahead, will probably stay out of it and begin to lose that ground to the lead group, which at the moment does include all the cars up to around about a level to where Monster has got back into it. So currently this DRS train goes all the way down to 16th place, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, although there are a couple parts of this train which is up in P5, the lead Haas here of Nick Mania.
Yeah, crucially, I think he's dropped out. I think he's dropped out of DRS. We'll see here. Does look like, I believe it's Spanias, if I pronounce that right, Spanias. We'll go Spanias, but in his first race for VRL, stepping up today, joining us today for the Haas team. So far, it's looking like, I mean, touch wood, looking like a really good haul of points for the Haas team, and this could elevate them further up. And he's looking quite quick. He's the second of the Haas drivers.
Yeah, it is very interesting to see. Well, now that Nick Mania doesn't have DRS, will they be able to pull away and lead like in the way that Gil is over Max, or will they sort of drop down the order and start to lose positions? It's going to be interesting to see what they do here. But up at the front, Gil has got over a second lead at 2 Max, so it's going to be very interesting to see if Max can fight back, or if Gil is just going to drive away into the distance and take their 6th win in a row.
That's crucial for his race as well. It's also crucial for the Constructors' Championship, because let's not forget, we do have McLaren and Ferrari who are locked in a battle for the win of the Constructors' Championship. I say locked in a battle, it's Ferrari did actually win it last time out in Mexico, so I take that back, but nevertheless, bragging rights are plenty for, apologies, that slip up there, Ferrari clinching the championship last time out, but yeah, bragging rights, and they'll just go even further further clear, I should say, at the top of the championship.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Of course, McLaren, they've been beaten by Ferrari, but they're going to want to sort of say that next season they can fight back. Of course, in real life, Nico Rosberg, that's how he eventually won the 2016 championship, but end of 2015, Hamilton sort of went off the boil after winning the championship. Rosberg got into a rhythm at the end of 2015, continued it into 2016. And then took the championship, obviously. So if McLaren could end this season on a high, prove that they've got what it takes to beat Ferrari next season, perhaps they could knock Ferrari off their perch.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see which drivers return, because we do usually see drivers swapping around a lot. Meanwhile, Luke and Nick did make a move on Plujin Bull, who is the lead medium tyre runner. Medium tyre runners not faring incredibly at the moment, as predicted, but you know, naturally there's going to be a bit of a tyre delta, and we should start to see some of the soft tyre runners struggling as we progress through this race, so we could start to see the tyres come into it. Meanwhile, IGK Domi is making that move now on Tim Wenting. He tried that move on lap number 2, didn't make it work. He's sat around for a bit, cooled his tyres, charged his ERS, and now we can get a move on and try and battle and take down his teammate.
Could we perhaps see some team orders here? It's probably unlikely, as they're on DRS train.
Wouldn't surprise me.
To be fair, if Mean Virus did decide to let Tommy through, that would risk well, it would lose them attachment to the DRS train ahead of them, which would be crucial.
Just watching the two Renaults battling side by side up into turn number 5. It's a great racing between the two Renaults. The Mercedes of Drakatos sat behind, a little bit lag as he tries to navigate Sam D, who drops behind his teammate. Really good sportsman-like racing. And I mentioned earlier, Jackson, the gap that the leaders will be looking into. Look at the gap opening up, 3.5 seconds down, nowhere near enough for a pit stop. But the leaders will probably see that on the minimap and be fancying it as a possible way in for a pit stop.
be crucial that they get that, because all it takes is one slip up in the pit lane. If Gil ends up behind a slower car, a slower medium runner, and perhaps it ends up behind a train here, as this could be battling to turn 1. Yes, it is Katos going down the inside into turn 1. Sam D on the outside. Oh, Sam D kept their nose, and that was brave to keep that one going. And now just on the outside, couldn't make it work. But now these three are all going to fight their way down towards turn 4 now. And on the outside is Sam D. Can they pull it off with their teammate ahead of them? They're going to want to stay with them, but can't keep Kratos behind them. So that's going to be interesting. See if they can keep up with this train, or if they're going to drop back into the grasp of Vrl F1.
I'm just going to bring up Jamil. Started 13th. It's not been a day to remember for Red Bull driver, has it? It's funny to reminisce. He was qualified 3rd in Silverstone, had some really good glimpses of pace, but struggled, I have to say, certainly struggled, as he's caught in this train as well. But back to the front, Gil, 2-second gap to Max, as that gap is continually opening. Gil pushing the limits, as it does look like Warren right on the back of Max still as well, so we could potentially see that move happening quite shortly, as we're already nearly 10 laps into this race. So yeah, Benjamin did pick up a 3-second time penalty. It looks like Nick Mania has been passed and dropped out of the DRS range of his teammates, so we could see him start to bottleneck the two McLarens, Tim, Luke and Nick, or Luke and Nick's got quite a big gap, so he may be able to close that. We'll have to see how it goes, but most importantly, Gil with a 2-second lead.
It does appear that the reason for some of the field spread, other than Gil sort of pulling away and sort of the medium runner issues, other than those, it seems sort of the cause of the DRS train sort of separating up a bit is Nick Mania. If you look now that they've been passed, their teammate Spanius has got straight up onto the back of the group in front, so you'd imagine if the McLarens were able to get past Nick Mania, they could also attach themselves onto the lead group.
Of course, Spanias in the running for a podium now, actually.
Could this be a McLaren battle here? Yes, it is. Domi going to the outside line into turn 1. Or what will the racing be like between the teammates here? Will they keep their nose in, or not as brave as Sam D there? But we'll have the run now on to the straight towards turn 4, out of the centre S. Oh, almost wheel bang, that was nearly a repeat of Ferrari then, in 2019. And Domi has got the position there with the help of DRS. And definitely wasn't team orders there. We can confirm that there was no team orders there, clearly.
Yeah, surprising. Surprising, Memes didn't let his McLaren counterpart through, but yeah, really respectful driving between the two of them. And Domi up into 7th now. He's going to set his sights on Nick Mania. I can imagine he should have that move done within the next couple of laps, given his pace, and Nick Mania now well out of DRS. But as you mentioned, yes, Spanias right on the back, or I said right on the back, but he's close right up to VRT Benjamin. Benjamin is the only driver of the top 5 to have a penalty so far, and it seems as if we've got a 4-car battle for P2 here.
Yeah, it's interesting. We could end up with a finish here that has the gap between 1st and 2nd bigger than the gap between 1st and 7th last season, which would be a fun statistic to have, but obviously not good for the racing. But I mean, when a driver is as quick as Gil is being in this race, yes, it's sad for the racing, but you've got to give credit to them. That is just outstanding race craft them. And it's surprising to see Benjamin with a penalty. Seeing as around here you often get most of your penalties when sort of battling with someone, because it is very easy to sort of be pushed wide or something around here. So strange to see Benjamin getting a penalty, seeing as they've been in clear air. Well, not clear air, but they've been very much on their own, just watching the cars in front most of the race.
So I have seen Plusionball just get past Luke and Nick, relatively easy move down into turn number 4, but one thing this might suggest, Plusionball, as I mentioned, the lead medium tyre runner, that could suggest that there's starting to be a bit of a switchover between the medium and the soft tyres. You mentioned earlier on in the race, Jackson, the switchover will come to the point where the medium tyre are the quicker tyre to be on due to the fact that they're more durable. It appears that we might not be long away from that, given the fact that Plusionball has just drove past Luke and Nick and has opened up a fair gap. I'm not sure if Luke and Nick's going to be able to come back at him now, as he is under pressure from Monster behind him.
Yeah, that is interesting to see. We'll have to now watch how Plusionball can catch up to this group in front, although the group in front, of course, does have DRS as Matthias Gamer comes into the pit lane and speeds into the pit lane. That's not what you want.